The Mason's Silent Song. Presented in a soft, hypnotic tone meant to lull listeners into rest. Let the script gently begin. Take a deep breath now. And as you slowly exhale, feel the weight of the day begin to lift away. Let your body soften into the bed. Your shoulders release. Your jaw loosens just slightly. And your eyes, they can remain closed, or they can drift closed gently as we begin. There's no need to do anything. Just listen. Let the sound of my voice carry you like a slow-moving river, downstream, into a quiet, peaceful place where stories sleep among the stones. Our story today begins in the early hush of dawn, in a time long ago, when cathedrals reached like prayers into the heavens, when knights rode beneath banners fluttering like autumn leaves, and when the world still believed that stone could sing. There lived a mason, a quiet man with strong hands, and eyes the color of old iron. His name was Elias. He woke each morning before the sun, when the streets of Greyholt were still wrapped in mist, and the only sound was the slow trickle of water from the courtyard well. His cottage sat at the edge of town, just where the cobbles gave way to moss and bramble. Inside, all was simple: wooden beams overhead, a low hearth that smelled of cedar ash, and a single stool beside a worn table where he kept his tools in orderly silence. Elias did not speak much. Some said he was born under a vow of silence, though that was only half true. He chose stillness, because he believed, deep in his chest where heartbeats echoed slow and steady, that stones held songs, and only silence could hear them. He carved not for coin, but for memory. Each morning, with a leather apron slung around his waist and calloused fingers wrapped around his chisel, he walked up the long hill to the cathedral in progress. It had no name yet. Cathedrals rarely did at first. They were born like trees, slow, stretching, rooted in purpose. And Elias, each day, carved gargoyles, arches, finials. But most especially he carved faces. Soft ones. Laughing ones. Weather-worn saints whose smiles hinted at secret jokes, and grieving kings whose brows held oceans. Can you hear the chisel? The pause. The light scrape of stone dust whispering to the ground, like snow falling gently. And if you listened carefully, the rhythm became something more. Not words. Not music exactly. But a pattern. A lullaby only the stone knew. It said in those days that stonemasons each had their own mark. A secret symbol they left carved somewhere hidden on the cathedral. A flower behind a column. A spiral beneath a stair. But Elias, he left no mark. Or so it seemed. For while other masons etched with purpose, Elias carved by feel. And deep in the seams of each stone he laid was a sound, a soft, humming harmony of angles and grain and time. That was his mark. A silent song. And here, dear listener, let us drift. Downward, now. Like a soft leaf falling in an autumn courtyard. Through memory, into the soft heartbeat of stone. Elias once told a young apprentice, though it was said more in gesture than words, that no two blocks of limestone were ever the same. Each carried within it an echo of the quarry it came from. The wind that touched its surface. The rains that ran over it. He would hold a block to his ear, eyes closed, as if waiting for it to speak first. And when he carved, he did so gently. The cathedral's overseer once said, Elias carves like he's unwrapping something already inside the stone. And maybe he was. There was a gargoyle high on the western spire, just above where the bells would hang. It had the face of an old man with closed eyes, a smile on his lips, and hands folded as if listening. That one, they whispered, was Elias's favorite. He called it, in the only word he wrote in the ledgers, Audre. To hear. Are you still breathing slowly? Let your next inhale be deep, and your exhale even longer. Let the weight of your body melt further into the mattress. And picture now the way the early sunlight slants through the scaffolding, casting long, golden shadows across stone blocks. Dust motes spin in lazy spirals, catching the light like tiny stars. And far below, the townspeople begin to stir. But up here, where Elias works, it is all hush and sky. They say that Elias could carve a rose so delicately it seemed to bloom from the wall itself. That he once etched a set of wings so finely, a bird tried to land upon them. But his most beloved work was never seen. It lay beneath the cathedral floor, hidden beneath layers of earth and marble. A spiral staircase that descended into silence. Elias had been tasked with carving the pillars there, low, supporting arms of the cathedral's heart. No one visited often. And so, he carved stories. Not saints or kings, but dreams. A boy running with a kite. A girl listening to the sea in a shell. A cat curled around a lute. Quiet lives. Whispered moments. Each one pressed gently into stone that would never again see the sun. Down here, it is cooler. The air hums faintly. Stone holds the chill, but also a memory of warmth from ages past. And when Elias worked here, he would light only one lantern. Its flicker made the carvings dance, shadows shifting like dreams. And all the while he listened. To the tap of his chisel. To the song of the stone. And sometimes, just sometimes, he'd hum. A single note, low and steady. To match the rhythm of the stone's response. And perhaps that's how the song was born. Not written. Not sung. But remembered. Would you like to rest your eyes now? Feel how heavy your eyelids are growing. The stillness around you. The breath like waves upon a shore. You're safe here. Held, like Elias's carvings, in the arms of quiet. Above the crypt, the cathedral slowly rose. Years passed like petals falling. Some seasons the work halted, for snow, for war, for harvest. But Elias returned always. Even as his beard grayed. Even as the overseers changed. Even as new apprentices came and went. His tools were passed down, but he remained. The last of the original masons. A man of stone and silence. On the night before the final stone was laid, Elias stayed alone in the cathedral. He lit no lanterns. He walked the halls in shadow. And when he reached the crypt, he sat on the cool stone floor, back against one of his own carvings. And there, with no one to see, he sang. Not a song of words, but the same soft hum he'd always carved to. And something answered. Not aloud. Not with echo. But in the stillness, he felt it. The cathedral itself humming back. This is the lullaby of stone. A music so slow it takes lifetimes to hear. A vibration that weaves through earth, mortar, and memory. And Elias, in that moment, knew he was not alone. The stones had remembered him. They always had. Take another breath now. Feel it rise through you like mist through the scaffolding. And let yourself drift further. Because the story does not end here. The cathedral may rise, but the song continues. Through time. Through stone. Through silence. Softly continuing, as you relax deeper into the quiet of the night. Let your shoulders sink further. Let your thoughts pass like clouds across a velvet sky. You're warm. And our story, like a slow-moving stream, flows gently onward. When the sun rose the next morning, golden and soft as candlelight through lace, the townspeople gathered before the cathedral steps. The final stone, the keystone of the great rose window, was to be set in place. Trumpets sounded in the village square. A choir waited on the green, their robes rippling in the breeze. The bishop stood with staff in hand, his voice echoing beneath the tall, unfinished arches. But Elias did not appear. Apprentices looked to one another, puzzled. The bell-ringer paused halfway through the first toll. And a hush crept over the crowd. He had never missed a single morning. Not through frost or fever. Not even the day the scaffolding cracked and the wind nearly carried a gargoyle off into the sky. So when the young boy named Lucien, Elias's most recent apprentice, was sent to find him, he ran with breath tight in his chest. He found the cottage just as Elias had left it, tools wiped clean and stacked, a loaf of dark rye bread on the counter, and a pair of boots beside the hearth, faintly warm. But Elias was not there. Lucien called out. Twice. Then, a flicker of instinct, or something softer, stranger, pulled him toward the cathedral. And as he climbed the great staircase, the very stones beneath his feet seemed to hum. Low, come, familiar. He followed it down. Not up to the towers where the final stone waited, but down into the crypt. Can you hear your own breath? As though you, too, were descending into the heart of a story. There, in the half-light, Lucian found Elias, seated in the curve of an archway, back resting against a pillar carved long ago. Eyes closed, hands folded. His chisel lay beside him, his lantern unlit, and yet a warmth still pulsed in the stone, as if it remembered the shape of his hands, as if it grieved gently. Lucian knelt beside him, but did not wake him. He knew. The song had ended. Later, when the workers came, they stood in silence. Even the bishop, whose voice often rose like a storm in sermons, said nothing. Instead, they let the moment stretch, like sunlight through stained glass, until one of the choir boys began to hum. Softly. But the same note Elias always carved to. And slowly, one by one, they joined in. A humming requiem for a man who taught stone to listen. Drift now, dear listener. Feel the hush of the cathedral settle around you. Its weight not heavy, but sheltering. You are inside the lullaby now. In the months that followed, the cathedral was completed. The keystone set, the bells hung, the great iron-bound doors carved. And near the rear arch, where few visitors ever paused, a final addition appeared. A gargoyle unlike the others. No wings, no claws, just a face. Eyes closed. A small smile, barely carved, as if he were still listening. Beneath it, in tiny letters barely seen unless one knew to look, was written, Lucian became a mason in time. But he did not carve as Elias did. Instead, he taught the apprentices something else. To feel the grain of the stone, to close their eyes before the first cut, to listen first. And sometimes, on cold nights or when the wind howled through the towers, he would go down into the crypt, and he would hum. A single note. And always, the stones would hum back. And now, let us float again. Through years. Through centuries. Let the cathedral fall silent in your mind. Its arches stretching like arms across dreams. Let the world grow soft around you. Let each breath slow. Let your fingers fall still. Because the song never truly ended. It only shifted. Changed key. Now it hums in library walls. In old bridges beneath ivy. In hearthstones worn smooth by generations. Stone remembers. There was once a village, small, half-forgotten, called Eldermere. Its chapel, crooked and vine-covered, was said to be built with some of the same stone. From Elias's cathedral. They called it Singing Stone. When the wind blew just right, and the bells from the distant abbey rang, people claimed you could hear something more. A second note. Like the heartbeat of the earth. Some believed it was Elias still humming. Others said the stones had simply learned to sing on their own. But the villagers, they never built over that chapel. They let it crumble slowly, but never removed the stones. Even when children played among the ruins, they were taught to sit quietly sometimes, just for a moment, and listen. Do that now. Just for a moment. Imagine your head resting on a pillow of cool, carved stone. The hush of night folded around you. And somewhere, not far beneath the surface of sleep, a soft, ancient hum. The mason's silent song. A gentle continuation, for deeper sleep, softer dreams, and ancient echoes that guide the breath. Before we begin, let yourself fully settle now. Sink into the comfort beneath you. Feel the stillness all around. There is nothing you need to do. Or be. Just this voice. The story. This quiet. And we return once more to the world of stone and memory. Our story drifts now beyond Elias, beyond Greyholt, to a time centuries later when the cathedral still stood, weather-worn but proud, its spires softened by wind and lichen, its bells now rung by rope and lever rather than hand, but the sound, still rich, still whole. No one remembered Elias by name anymore. At least, not in the open ledgers or guided tours. But in the quiet places, in the crypt, beneath the high arch, his presence remained, especially to her. Her name was Muriel, a restoration apprentice, sent from the university, curious and quiet, with ink-stained fingers and a sketchbook always close. She didn't dress like the tourists. No wide-brimmed hats or camera straps. She wore linen coats and soft boots, and carried her tools like a musician does an instrument. She was told to catalog the lower levels, but it was the crypt that called her. The moment she stepped into that low chamber, she felt it? A hush unlike any other. Not just silence. Something deeper, like the pause between breaths, the stillness between heartbeats, the moment right before you fall asleep. She ran her fingers across the stones, faint ridges beneath her touch, shapes, petals, faces, hidden beneath time and dust. And as she worked, dusting, tracing, sketching, a sound began to rise in her thoughts. Not from outside, not through ears, but from within. The tone, low and steady, as if the stones were softly waiting. Breathe in again now. Let the breath draw in like morning light through a high stained glass window. And as you exhale, feel the centuries drift through you. Stone to skin, silence to soul. Muriel began coming at dusk, long after the tourists left, when the echo of footfalls faded, and only the sound of her breath remained in the still crypt. She'd sit beneath the old pillar, the one where a small carving of a sleeping cat curled beneath a lute, and she would listen. Sometimes she thought she heard humming. Sometimes she imagined it was only the wind. But it comforted her. She stopped bringing her tools. She brought only a lantern, a book, and once a clay whistle she had as a child. She didn't play it. She simply held it, let it warm in her hand as if remembering. Above her, the cathedral bell tower reached skyward. Below her, beneath layers of limestone and memory, the stones remembered Elias. Not his voice, not his face, but his listening. One evening, as rain whispered across the leaded roof, Muriel dreamt in the crypt. She hadn't meant to fall asleep, but the stone beneath her had been warm, impossibly so, and the hush around her so complete. In her dream, the cathedral was whole again. Alive. Chisels tapped gently. Lanterns swung in arched corridors. And someone hummed. She walked through the dream, barefoot, following the sound. It led her to the farthest wall. One she'd dusted a dozen times. But in the dream, a door appeared. A narrow arch, carved with roses and wings. And over it, one word. She reached for the handle, and woke with a breath caught in her chest. The next day, she returned with a brush and a light. There was no door, no arch, but beneath layers of grime, a rose, a wing, and, barely visible, etched in soft hand, half lost to time. Can you feel it too now? That ancient hush, that deep listening that stone alone can hold. Let it cradle your thoughts. Let the breath in your lungs become softer, like dust drifting in golden light. You are part of this story now. Muriel became obsessed, not wildly, not in the way of fever, but like rain over stone. Persistent. Gentle. Sure. She followed lines that led to nothing, traced patterns others ignored. And one night as the bell struck midnight, she uncovered something strange. A hollow. Behind the wall. A small chamber. Just large enough to hold a man. Inside there was no relic. No gold. No bones. Only a single block of stone. Smooth earth. And upon it a groove. Curved like a spiral. A fingerprint in stone. She laid her hand upon it. And the world went still. Her breath, her pulse. Even the hush of wind in the tower. All vanished. She stood inside silence. And somewhere, far and deep, she heard it. That hum. Not in her ears. Not in the room. But inside the stone. Inside everything. She stayed late that night. Not to draw. Not to record. But to simply sit. To listen. To feel the presence of something older than memory. A kindness wrapped in granite. A comfort slow as moss. She didn't need to understand it. She only needed to hear. And now you, too, can listen, wherever you are. In your bed, on a train, far from stone or deep within it. Close your eyes. Imagine cool stone beneath your palms. The scent of dust and oil lamp. The hush of centuries. and feel the slow, soft hum that lives just beneath sound. A song that holds you. A song that forgets nothing. A song of stillness and time. A dream deepening now, echoing across stone, silence, and soft sleep. Let your body feel heavier, as though your bones, too, are carved from ancient marble. Let each thought slow, each breath settle. Let the quiet cradle you now, as the story flows on like cool water over riverbed. Muriel told no one of the chamber. Not because she wished to keep it secret, but because it felt sacred, like a whisper never meant for voice. She visited often, sometimes with a thermos of tea, sometimes with a small blanket tucked under her coat. Always alone, and always with silence. The groove on the stone, shaped like a spiral, smooth from centuries of still air, became her compass. She would place her hand upon it, and let the hush take her. She found in time that if she stayed still long enough, she could hear different tones. A higher note, like wind across a bottle's lip. A deep resonance, like bells buried in snow. And once, faint laughter. Not out loud. Not ghostly. But something remembered by the stone. Stone remembers souls. Not with words. Not with names. But with shape, with silence, with the rhythm of time. One day, she found a small carving hidden behind a support beam. So shallow, it nearly vanished in the grain of the wall. A cat, curled around a lute. She smiled. She had seen this before. It was the very pillar she'd once leaned against, where she first napped, where her dream had begun. Beneath it, faintly carved. Just that. Not a full name. But enough. She brushed it with a soft cloth, then traced the line of the lute strings with her fingertip. The silence around her shifted. Not louder. Just deeper. As though she had turned a page in a book made of air. You are safe here. Let the silence around you grow wider, warmer. Imagine it settling around your chest like a woolen cloak. This is the deep part of the night, where dreams slow, and stone begins to sing. That evening she brought her recorder. Just to test it. She placed it on the stone near the groove, pressed record, and stepped back into the shadow. No sound, no movement, only the hum. Later, in her small apartment, she played it back. For a moment, nothing. And then, the pulse. A low tone. Then silence again. But that tone stayed with her. In her ears. In her sleep. Even in her waking thoughts. It seemed to rise from floorboards. From the bus seat. From the wooden desk in her study. It wasn't intrusive. It was comforting. Like breath. She began humming softly in the shower. At work. While stirring soup. The same note. The note from the crypt. And over time, she noticed something else. Wherever she hummed it, the world grew softer. A baby in a cafe stopped crying. A dog curled up and fell asleep beside her chair. Even the old elevator in her building, usually creaky and cold, moved smoother when she hummed. Can you hear it too now? A single tone, not from the world outside, but from within. Let your thoughts wrap gently around it. Let it vibrate softly in the quiet of your chest, like a candle flickering behind your ribs. Muriel wrote in her journal that she didn't believe in magic. She believed in memory, in resonance, in the way certain places held onto feeling, like fingerprints pressed into clay. She began sketching without looking, letting her hands move where the stone seemed to guide them. She filled pages with spirals, arches, eyes closed, smiles half-carved. And always, the letter, tucked in corners, etched into margins. One night, as snow dusted the cathedral roof, Muriel returned to the chamber with a small gift. A stone chisel, slightly rusted, found in the back of the archives. She left it gently at the base of the groove stone, and whispered only one thing. Thank you. Then she sat and placed her hand on the stone, and the hum changed. For the first time it moved. Not just one note. A series, rising through, like breath, or like a lullaby. And she knew, deep in her bones, where marrow hums and dreams root, that the stone was singing back. Let the song hold you now. Let your whole body feel it, like slow tide against the shore of your ribs. like wind curling through branches at dusk. Muriel never published her findings. But she left something else behind. A small book, titled only, The Mason Listens. Inside, no dates, no maps, only sketches, whispers in pencil, of gargoyles who looked peaceful, of arches shaped like arms, of hands, folded in prayer or listening. And one final image, a spiral, etched into stone, with the caption, "There is a music beneath everything." The book was placed in the cathedral's gift shop by a quiet volunteer, who had found it in the crypt one morning, tied with a ribbon and a note that simply read, "For those who hear." And over the years, pilgrims came, some seeking wonder, some seeking peace. They entered the crypt, unsure what they sought, but left feeling quieter, as though a song had passed through them they hadn't realized they needed. Children began humming without knowing why. Tourists sat longer than expected. Couples held hands without speaking. And every now and then, someone found the groove in the stone, and placed their palm upon it, and smiled. Place your hand there now, in your mind. Feel the cool stone, the centuries it has held, the stillness it offers you. The lullaby is still there. Boys, so endless. True. A final descent into stillness, where memory lives in stone and dreams rest beneath arches of hush. Let everything go now. Let the last tension in your body melt down into the earth. Let your thoughts soften, like water soaking into worn marble. There is nothing left to hold. Only to rest. Only to listen. Centuries passed. The world changed. The village of Greyholt became a town, then a city, then something else entirely. Trains wound like silver vines through the valleys. Antennas rose beside rooftops. Lights replaced torches. Voices grew louder, faster. But in the cathedral, in the crypt, beneath the oldest stones, the silence still lived, untouched, unafraid, unchanging, and the hum remained. No longer did people visit as pilgrims. Now they came with scanners, tablets, headsets. Some studied the architecture. Some documented the acoustics. One day, a sound technician named Clara was assigned to capture the unique reverberation properties of the lower vaults. It was a simple job, 3 days. Measure echoes. Analyze decay. She arrived with wires and gear. But as she stood beneath the arch, the one with the small curled cat and lute, she grew still. She couldn't explain it. Something pressed gently into her. A presence. Like someone was waiting. Not intruding. Just listening. Feel that now. That warm attention, not loud, but present. A gaze not from eyes, but from memory. From below. From within. Clara tested her equipment. Set up microphones. Snapped her fingers. Clapped. But in the playback, there was something else. The tone. She checked the file again. The tone was not in the room. Not from her. It was beneath the recording. A foundation note. Unmoving. Pure. She slowed the file. Isolated frequencies. The tone remained. Like bedrock. Like breath. Like memory. She spent the night in the crypt. Unplanned. Unintentional. The crew left and she stayed behind. Sat cross-legged near the old groove stone. Eyes closed. She didn't sleep. Not truly. She drifted. And in the drift, the tone rose around her. And within it, other sounds began to emerge. Laughter. Chisel taps. A single hummed note. And in the corner of her mind, a face. Eyes closed. Hands folded. A smile, just barely there. She returned the next night. And the one after. Not to work. Just to be. To sit in the hush. To let her breath match the rhythm of the stone. She found herself humming as she walked home. Not loud. Just enough to remember. It became a ritual. A meditation. A quiet conversation. You can do that too, you know. Humming. Softly. To yourself. No tune. No lyrics. Just breath turned to tone. And in that tone, you might feel it. The gentle hand of the old mason, guiding you deeper into peace. One afternoon, Clara noticed something strange. The groove in the stone. It had changed. ever so slightly. Barely more than a shimmer in the light. But she swore it had deepened, widened, as if time was still at work, still carving, or listening. She reached out and placed her palm upon it, and a warmth rose through her. Not heat, memory. She closed her eyes, and heard, not with ears, but with something older, the cathedral's heart. Not a sound, not a whisper, but presence, like being held, like stillness so complete it became music. And in that stillness, Clara wept. Not from sadness, not from pain, but from recognition, as though some long-forgotten part of her had finally returned home. Later that year, she published no paper. She gave no talk. But she did leave a gift. A small plaque, tucked into the shadow of the crypt's arch. The song beneath us never ends. Place your hand. Remember. And still the people came. Few. Quiet. Sensitive to hush. They didn't speak much. Didn't photograph. Didn't touch anything but that groove in the stone. Some came once. Some returned every season. Some simply sat and listened. And when they left, they hummed. Softly. Always the same note. It passed through train cars. Across ferry decks. Between city alleys and elevator shafts. A quiet hum. Elias's song. It is said that stone forgets nothing. That within every cathedral, every bridge, every hearthstone, there are traces of hands, the breath of love carved without witness. The mason never needed applause. Only time. Only silence. And in that, his song became eternal. So now, wherever you are, or drifting in that soft place between waking and dream, you too can feel it. Place your hand over your heart. Feel its rhythm. Let your breath slow, deeper, even slower, and let yourself hum, so faintly, just like that. You feel it? You're a part of it now. The song, the silence, the stone.